You're listening to English Go Podcast. We'll get started right after this. Hello, I have had a lovely Christmas, and thankfully I was feeling better by Christmas Day, and now I would say I'm about 99% better. I've got a slight, sort of like the leftovers from a cold remaining. So, a bit of a cough, but I think largely my voice sounds okay today, which is great. Well, Christmas was the usual affair. In the morning, we opened presents, and in the afternoon, we had a Christmas meal with turkey and sprouts and carrots and roast potatoes, stuffing and pigs in blankets, if you know what they are, little sausages with bacon wrapped around them. And we normally have some wine as well with the Christmas meal, white wine. But somebody forgot to buy it this year, so we had something like white wine, but not quite white wine. And of course, there were Christmas crackers on the table. And I don't know if you know what they are. We're not talking edible crackers, like crackers and cheese crackers. We're talking like little paper things that you pull and they make a bang sort of sound. I guess it depends what country you come from. I'm pretty sure like European countries are probably going to have crackers. I don't know. I've never spent Christmas abroad. Maybe it is a weird English thing. Nowhere else has them, but I get the impression that other countries have them too. Although I've never seen any in Japan, it has to be said. So maybe Japanese people don't know what Christmas crackers are. But anyway, we pulled those. They went bang. And then there's like a little paper party hat in, and a little joke as well, usually like some little piece of paper with some really bad joke on. The Christmas jokes inside crackers are always the worst. They're sort of the kind of jokes that you sort of groan at rather than laugh at. But anyway, we all put our hats on and carried on eating our Christmas meal. Now, it was a little different this year because my father, unfortunately, had COVID. So we had to have like two separate tables in two separate rooms. We could see each other through this like large door, like double doors that were open. But it was a weird experience all the same. And I was sitting with my sister and her boyfriend, and my parents were sitting on the other side of the room. My other sister didn't come round this year. She hasn't visited at all this year, actually. And that's because my father has COVID, which nobody was expecting, really. I mean, in England, it really feels like COVID has sort of almost vanished, even though I know it hasn't. Nobody seems to think about it much anymore, and nobody's wearing masks over here. And I remember that one COVID Christmas when we could only visit for something like an hour or something like that, and you had to be very careful about who was visiting, and you could only have like one household visiting and not two, and there were all these weird rules you had to follow. So I just thought, all of that's gone, we don't have to worry about that anymore, and then my father goes and catches COVID just before Christmas, which was really bad luck. And I did mention that I was wondering if I had COVID because I've been ill recently also. And I've taken a total of 3 tests, and every test has come back negative. So like I said, I do not know what unusual thing I had. The symptoms were a bit like COVID, to be honest. But I don't know. The test came back negative 3 times, so I'll never know what that was. I also went to visit my sister's family. My sister's family? Well, and my sister, yeah. On Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, and gave some presents to my nephews, and also had like a Christmas meal there. My father wasn't able to go to that because he was still testing positive. So that was a shame. But yes, I did manage to go to a football match with my father. I went to see my local team play on Boxing Day, and that's sort of a traditional thing to do. I think there's quite often a Boxing Day football match happening, in many places all over the UK. And I've been going to this football club, how many? I don't know, maybe half a year or something like that. And it's only a small club, so it's a local club, and there aren't that many people who go and watch this team play. But on Boxing Day, wow, it was busy. It was about 2 or 3 times busier than it normally is. There was a lot of people there, and there was quite a good atmosphere. And we both really enjoyed that. Our team won 3-0, which was nice to see, and it was a good match. But yes, at least my father was able to do that, and he was able to do that because you don't have to isolate in England anymore, even if you're testing positive. And it was out in the open air, we didn't go anywhere indoors, so it's probably reasonably safe, I should imagine, to go and do that kind of thing. So yes, apart from the COVID situation, a pretty standard Christmas, and I definitely enjoyed it. It's been nice having some time off work, and I've had some lovely food, and I've drank some lovely drinks. I've had some Christmas ales. I was drinking, only last night, I was drinking Yorkshire pudding beer. I don't know if you know what a Yorkshire pudding is, you might not. It sounds like something you'd eat for dessert. It isn't. It's something that you'd have on a meal, like a roast dinner sort of meal. In fact, some people have them at Christmas time. They have them on their Christmas dinners. It's sort of a savoury thing made with eggs and flour and milk, and not really the kind of thing that you would imagine being in beer. But this beer I was drinking last night actually contained real Yorkshire pudding, which was weird. But it was quite a nice beer, actually, anyway, so all good. So yes, a normal, fun, sort of calm, a bit relaxing at times, a bit busy at times, but yeah, normal, fun Christmas, I think. Actually, it wasn't only the COVID thing that made this Christmas a bit different. It was also knowing that very soon I'd be going on an adventure. And I think that's putting it mildly. So if you remember last episode, I said I would probably have some big news to share with you on the next episode. And indeed I do have some big news to share with you. Now, this is something that all of the listeners to my private podcast already know, but I'm now ready to share this with everyone. I am going to Japan on the 30th of December. It's now the 28th of December, so I've got a couple of days before my flight. Now, I'm not going over there for a holiday. I do not have a return ticket. I have a single, one-way ticket to Japan. So that means I'm going to live in Japan and I'm going to start a new life over there. See, I told you it was going to be big news, didn't I? Now, I've been giving a lot of thought to this podcast and what should I do with this podcast if I am no longer in England, if I'm moving to Japan. At first, I was thinking, maybe I'm going to have to stop the podcast. Maybe I'm going to have to end the podcast, even though I really didn't like that idea. But then I started thinking, actually, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is going to help me make podcasts. And the reason I was thinking this is when I'm living here in England, everything English is happening around me, and I can't tell. I can't tell that these English things are happening because it's all so normal to me. I am English. This is the life I've lived since I was born, so it all seems so incredibly normal to me. However, if I go to Japan, then I'm pretty sure I'm going to see a lot of ways in which England is different to Japan. And so I will have a lot of things to talk about, along the lines of, we do this in England and we think this in England, and there's this thing in England that's called this, and we use it for this. So I think it's really going to highlight England to me, even though I'm going to be outside of the country. So yes, in the long run, I'm pretty hopeful actually that this is going to give me a lot more things, English things to talk about. Because what I don't want to do is just keep talking about Japan all the time. Well, no, I do. I enjoy talking about Japan, and I'm sure I'm going to have a lot to say about my time in Japan. But I don't want to keep talking about Japan all the time on this podcast. So I will try to keep it sort of like English-based, English-themed. But because I'm going to have so much to talk about, so many like Japanese-related things, I am starting a new podcast from today. And that podcast is called Englishman in Japan. So if you enjoy listening to the English Go podcast and you find it like reasonably easy and you want something a bit more challenging, then do please check out the Englishman in Japan podcast, because this podcast is, I would say it's advanced. It's not targeted towards people learning English. So I will be talking at native speed, and I won't be explaining words, and I'll be using like a larger vocabulary, I think, as well. So definitely a good one to listen to if you're looking for a bit of a challenge, and or maybe you just like, hearing about Japan. If so, it sounds like the perfect podcast for you. So that is it. We come to the end of this episode. I've told you about the lovely Christmas I've just had. I've told you the big news as well, the very big news, that I am moving to Japan. And the next time I speak to you, the next podcast episode will be recorded in Japan. So until then, this is Chris in England saying bye-bye. Thank you for listening to English Go Podcast. If you'd like to listen ad-free, listen to extra bonus episodes, or read the transcripts of these episodes, then please consider supporting this podcast at patreon.com/EnglishGo. Thank you.